Welcome to this special edition episode of EOS Weekly. Today is Saturday, August 25th, and today we will be introducing a new concept that we call the 21 code producers. Now, just to clarify, this is not a news episode like what we typically cover in our midweek video releases. In these special edition episodes, we're going to be breaking our typical format, and in this one, we'll be using our time to introduce some new ideas to the EOS community, which may be accepted or rejected, who knows. This is simply us here at EOS Weekly trying to contribute some new approaches that may hopefully be helpful in some way. So here's what we wanted to discuss. As we all know, the way EOS pays for its running and maintenance is through inflation. 1% annual inflation goes to pay for the block producers who are in charge of keeping the EOS network humming along, creating blocks every half a second, and also contributing CPU, net, and RAM for use by the dApp developers. But currently, we also have 4% inflation going to the WPF, the Worker Proposal Fund. This is supposed to go towards the Worker Proposal System, which would use those funds to pay for various types of projects that might be beneficial to the EOS ecosystem. Now, as we've covered in recent episodes, there is a lot of debate happening right now around how to manage the Worker Proposal System to ensure these funds don't get abused. In a single word, it comes down to oversight. How do you have oversight in a decentralized, complex system like EOS? Well, one thing that is being proposed is we could elect a group of individuals, a committee, to be in charge of this oversight. But still, this would put a massive amount of power in that committee's hands, given the amount of money we're talking about spending. And if we were okay with this committee-style approach, why not also run our block producers in this same way? Obviously, we wouldn't want to do this because this would be more centralized, and block production is a key aspect that must be as decentralized as possible. But here's the question we'd like to put out to the EOS community. If we do like the approach we've taken with the block producers, could we apply the same exact logic to our worker proposal system? We could elect 21 of what we are calling code producers with the same exact payment structure as the block producers. So this would mean the top 21 code producers will get the most pay, but some of those below the 21 mark, the code producer candidates, would still get some payment as well. Oh, and just like block producers, 1% inflation would be plenty to pay the code producers. So let's talk about the name. Why are we calling them code producers? Well, going back to the worker proposal system, one of the problems here is the name worker. The word worker is so vague and open-ended that it could be interpreted in so many different ways. But what are the things that we definitely need done by this worker proposal system? The most important thing we need to do is manage the EOSIO code, the code that runs our blockchain. We want to make sure this code is secure, bug-free, and we want to make enhancements to this code, for example, with the IBC, the inter-blockchain communication, which would make sidechains possible. If we go back to the current team working on the worker proposal system, they're planning to form an emergency committee to address several of these same things. What they're recognizing here is that the management of the EOSIO blockchain code is the biggest gap in the EOS ecosystem at the moment. So, we're calling them code producers to clarify that these are technical people who are working on the code. And to clarify, we're talking about blockchain code, the EOSIO code, not dApp code, which is created by private organizations. This group of code producers would have some basic requirements similar to how block producers have basic requirements. Code producers would be required to have a website. They'd be required to show who the developers are that are on their teams, either with their resumes or their GitHub or Bitbucket usernames, so we could see what kind of code they write. Code producers would be required to share a roadmap in terms of how they plan to contribute to the EOSIO codebase. Some code producers may be security experts who will primarily contribute by auditing the security of EOS. Others may use their code producer funds to run a bug bounty program. Others may specialize in code management in GitHub, managing pull requests and whatnot. You might have a code producer whose sole job is to be a watchdog, a group that audits all the other code producers and reports back to the community how the other code producers are performing. Is there a code producer that's submitting low-quality pull requests? We want to know about it. And of course, you would have code producers who are making general enhancements that we want to the EOSIO code. Using our same example as earlier, we would want a team dedicated to inter-blockchain communication so that we can get to the point where we have sidechains. Of course, the code producers would not be allowed to make any changes to the fundamental behavior of the blockchain without a community referenda vote that approves the behavioral change. Just being elected code producer does not authorize them to make any changes they want. And our watchdog code producers would help us all keep an eye on this. We will know, we will know what type of code producer a given candidate is by their roadmap and the info on their website. Then we as the community can elect them so that they begin getting funding. And we can adjust the mix as we go depending on where the greatest need is. This would eliminate the need to vote on an onslaught of various worker proposals coming in, which could lead to voter fatigue, which has been a concern. It also eliminates the need for an oversight committee, which has also been a concern. The code producers would self-regulate as long as the community votes in the right mix of code producers. And just like the block producers, the code producers would be able to vote out other code producers who are not doing their job. If a sock puppet code producer gets elected and is making no contributions to the health of the EOSIO codebase, the code producers could vote them out by a 15 out of 21 vote. Now, some of you may be saying, why can't we just have the block producers manage the EOSIO code? Two main reasons. First, it would give the block producers too much power and too much responsibility to both manage the EOSIO code and do all the other BP functions. It's just like in government where you want to have separate power into different branches. And second, while many BPs might be great C++ coders, most probably aren't. It's not the same skill set required to run the infrastructure for a BP and write great blockchain code. These are two separate skill sets. The other objection we expect from this code producer's idea is, can't we just let Block.one keep doing it? The answer is no. Is EOS a decentralized autonomous community or not? Yes, it's okay if during this infancy stage while we're still learning to walk, that we rely heavily on Block.one. But this is not a good long-term plan. We need to become self-reliant, and these code producers could get us to that point. Now, Block.one could potentially run as a candidate code producer, and they would win by a long shot, most likely. But if I were advising Block.one, I would tell them this would be a bad political move on their part, and would draw scrutiny to EOS. Block.one would be best situated as a consultant or an advisor to the code producers. Code producers could even hire Dan Larimer himself potentially to contribute code. The main overlap in responsibilities between the code producers and block producers would be in testing. Similar to how any software project works, there's some internal testing done, and then it's handed over to the customer for UAT testing, that's user acceptance testing, before that code is put in production. The code producers would be expected to test their EOSIO code before handing it over to the BPs. But the BPs should then do their own testing before upgrading their infrastructure with the new code. That's it. This is our code producer idea that we wanted to present to the community as an alternative to the worker proposal system. And now we want to know what you think. If you like this idea, give us a thumbs up and add a comment below. If we're missing something and this would never work for some reason, we want to hear from you too. You can find us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EOSWeekly. Let your voice be heard. These are still the early days of EOS, and we all have a chance to shape this incredible project. So thank you for your time, and we'll see you in a few days at our normal weekly news episode.